I think that it's a bit too early to say this. We just start, the final negotiations are only starting. I think that we have good hopes, but also worries, and I think that now is the time not to give up, basically. I think that the most challenging issue will be the fact of having binding targets of emission reduction. I wouldn't say that this is already a lost cause, but it's going to be very challenging, and I believe that the European Union and the most progressive parties should not now already say, well, let's give up on this and let's talk about something else. I think that this is certainly one extremely challenging issue, but also one that will allow us to say whether or not we are on track to be on the trajectory of a raise of temperature of less than 2 degrees. Another very challenging point, which people consider to be a little bit more possible, is certainly this question of this issue of being able to review the national commitments, for the simple reason that we cannot be content with what we have now. The NDC are basically going between 2.7 to 3.7, depending who talks. In terms of raising the temperature, this is totally unacceptable and dangerous. So I think that the capacity and the possibility of finding an agreement on the review that we'll be able to, on the pre-2020 review that we'll be able to fill this gap is certainly completely key, and it's still open. There are some nice noises coming from the US, which are certainly not enough. And I think that that will be very important. What I am very worried today is some rumors going around that the European Union delegation could be divided on this. And I think that that would be extremely bad. We have to expose this, and we have to make sure that the European Union is not on the wrong side on this extremely important and very possible conclusion. I think that all of them need to move, and I think that we have two major risks. One is that we give up, as I said earlier, and the other one is that those who should move do not move. It is very interesting because I believe that there are some countries like India, for example, which are talking 2 or 3 different languages, and there it's key to keep the pressure in India and to make sure that it doesn't hinder the most ambitious part of the possible agreement. I think that now Sherpas are going through the famous document, which is full of brackets and notes, etc., etc. Different meetings which are going on in parallel, and we know from negotiating legislation at the European Union level, this part is painstaking, but is also necessary and important. What is very important, though, is not to delay too much, not to say, okay, we can wait, we still have 2 weeks. No. We have to make sure that certain things are agreed. Those who are possible to agree, they are agreed, and not everything is left for the end, because we also know from the European Union negotiation that when you leave everything for the end, the result is bad. And I am very afraid that some of the people who try to delay things today are actually those who want to have a wishy-washy agreement, so we shouldn't do that. Well, of course, we want to have the 3 points I spoke earlier very clearly, very much high on the agenda. We also would like to keep this idea of linking climate change to successful measures of mitigation and adaptation, but also around the fight of climate change. This was on human rights, and this is something that seems to be not very much linked to what we fight for, but I think that is really very important. I want to insist on the question of the revision and the possibility of coming back to the commitments of everybody before 2020, and I think that this is very much linked to our own legislation at European level. So I think that if we manage to get a good agreement which opens the way and which actually is paving the way to a reduction of emissions, which is clear for everybody. This would be absolutely the most important result, and all the rest will certainly follow.